Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to another live streaming of tax training. I would like to say thank you po sa ating mga subscribers. Umabot na po tayo ng 17,700 subscribers, no? Thank you very much. Ha?
805.
Ngayon, 800 na? Okay, 7,700 pa lang yung nakita ko kanina eh. Okay, so 7,805 daw po. Okay, so thank you very much po sa ating mga subscribers. And our topic for tonight, before we will have a question and answer, is a continuation din po nung topic natin nung Tuesday, no? And what is the topic? What happened after filing your income tax return? Because all the while, people will think na that is already a sufficient tax compliance once you have filed your income tax return. But for your information, what happened after you file your income tax return? Because once you filed your income tax return, you are submitting information about your business operations, and that information will be used by the BAR either in your favor or against you, no? That's why we have to study the regulations, how the BAR will use your information return, and how the BAR will conduct a tax audit to determine your tax liabilities, no? And also, bibigyan ko kayo ng tips on what to choose, whether tax reinvestigation or request for reinvestigation or a request for reconsideration ang gagawin nyo once you are audited already by the BAR, no? Meron na kayong letter of authority. Kasi expect na pagka nakapag-file ka na ng income tax return mo, later on, ang kasunod niyan, letter authority na for tax audit. Why letter authority for tax audit? Because your income tax return, the basic financial statement that you submit to the BAR, are their source of information to conduct audit whether you are paying the correct amount of taxes. No? Okay. Shout out. Mari. Okay.
Hello po, good evening po sa lahat ng viewers. Shoutout po kay Ma'am Bernadette Lonon.
Okay.
Good evening po. And kay Ma'am Chin Chin. Sabi niya, maayong gabi daw, ma'am.
Ay, may gabi eh,
Sa atong
Chiching.
tanan.
Sa atong tanan. Oh, may gabi eh. Okay.
And good evening din daw po, ma'am. Sabi ni Ma'am Jules Prims. Apo.
Yeah, kasi ano kami kanina sa Messenger. No, thank you. Okay.
And then kay Sir Jeffrey Salceda, good evening daw po.
Okay.
And kay Ma'am Malu Sintos, good evening din daw po.
Okay.
And shoutout po kay Ma'am Janet Alusiman and kay Ma'am Lilian Yao, good evening daw
Okay
po.
po.
Sila pa lang, ma'am.
Okay, so good evening po sa mga lahat sa mga viewers natin. Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, no? Maayong gabi kaninyong tanan sa mga Ilonggo natin, maayong gabi sa inyo tanan sa mga kapampangan natin, mayap na bengi kay kungan. And sa lahat-lahat na po, magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat, no? And we will be back with our topic continuation on what happened when you file your income tax return, no? So do not think na I filed my income tax return and that's all, no? The filing of your income tax return is just the beginning, because once you are audited, lahat-lahat ng mga impormasyon na kailangan regarding your income will be submitted by you to the BAR, no? Okay, we'll start with our topic with the best evidence rule. Ano ba itong best evidence rule na ginagamit ng BAR as a tool for tax audit, no? So our basis is the Revenue Memorandum Circular number 23-2000. Meron ka na dyan, Hari? No? So we have Revenue Memorandum Circular number 23-2000. Ito yung existing revenue procedures on the assessment of deficiency in internal revenue taxes based on the best evidence obtainable. No? Ano ba itong sinasabi na at saka bakit best evidence obtainable? Ang income tax return po na na-file ninyo na sa BAR, nandun na, na-receive na, natatakan na, sinabmit nyo, yung apat na financial statements na yun, balance sheet, income statement, statement of changes in owner's equity or equity, at saka yung cash flow. And yung fifth, the notes to financial statement or disclosures to financial statement, they are the best evidence obtainable by the BIR. Kaya nga very strict yung BIR na lahat talagang kailangan ng pa-file ng income tax return. Actually, alam nyo, during the filing season, parang fiesta po yan sa BIR, no? Sa lahat ng filing or tax return na parang most awaited po ng BIR is your annual income tax return. Kasi ang daming gamit po ng annual income tax return. At isa na nga dito, ito yung sinasabi niya na best evidence obtainable. Pero of course, hindi lang yung income tax return ninyo. Meron pang mga ibang best evidence obtainable also used in tax audit. Okay? So what is the reason why nagkaroon po ng best evidence obtainable ang BIR? Because it has been observed that a very significant number of taxpayers either refuse or fail to present the respective accounting records. So yun pala yung dahilan, no? During the audit, bawa, nag-file na tayo ng income tax return natin, and then kasama na tayo dun sa listing na priority for audit. Approve na ng commissioner. So pagbalik ng approval, issue na ng letters authority. So what happened? During the audit, pagpadala na ng pagpapareceive na ng letter authority sa taxpayer, meron pa siyang kasama na mga list of requirements for the taxpayer to submit. Karamihan, no, sa experience natin, hindi nagpa-present ng accounting records yung taxpayer, no? So, when demanded for tax audit purposes, hindi sila nagpapakita ng mga records, thereby resulting to the delay in the submission of the revenue officer's report of investigation as required by the existing audit program and inconsistency in the determination of the deficiency internal revenue tax that may properly be assessed and demanded from the taxpayer to the damage and prejudice against the revenue. So, hindi magpapakita ng record. So, how can the examiner complete the examination? Siyempre, delayed. And examiners now has only 180 days to complete the audit. No? So, kung halimbawa hindi ma-complete yung audit, the examiner will require the taxpayer to file a waiver of the statute of limitation. No? Kaya meron tayong video in our tax training dito po sa YouTube channel natin na to. Meron tayong when to sign a waiver of statute of limitations. Pero since after filing na po ito, yung mga seminars natin or yung mga topics natin dito for discussion, dito po sa YouTube channel natin na tax training, will all be in preparation for the tax audit, no? Kasi nakasynchronize tayo sa, kumbaga sa work program ng BIR. So, after filing na income tax, the next is tax audit. So, dito tayo, kikisabay tayo sa kanila so that hindi kayo mabulaga at saka alam nyo what to prepare, no? So, the taxpayer, when demanded, hindi nagbibigay ng mga records, ng mga books of records, no? So, what will the BIR do? In the absence of accounting records or other documents necessary for the proper determination of the taxpayer's internal revenue tax liability, ito po yung source or the provision in the National Internal Revenue Tax about best evidence obtainable. No? Ito yung Section 6B of the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997. Itong 1997, ito yung Comprehensive Tax Reform Program which overhaul our taxation system in the Philippines. At although nagkaroon na tayo ng mga amendments dito, and more so yung sa train law and sa create law, pero itong ibang mga provisions hindi naman na-amend, no? Dadadagdagan pa. In fact, sa train law, binigyan pa ng powers, dinagdagan pa yung powers ng commissioner, no? When it comes to mga third-party information. Okay. So, anong sabi dito sa Section 6B of the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997 requires that the assessment of the tax be determined based on the best evidence obtainable as follows. No? So, nandito ang best evidence obtainable. When a report required by law as a basis for the assessment of any national internal revenue tax shall not be forthcoming. Ibig sabihin, parang hindi ibibigay, no? Within the time fixed by laws or rules and regulations, or when there is reason to believe that any such report is false, o kaya magbigay man pero kulang, o kaya misrepresented yung talagang facts, no? So, incomplete or erroneous. The commissioner shall assess the proper tax on the best evidence obtainable, no? So, very clear po yung sinasabi ng Section 6B of the National Internal Revenue Code about the best evidence obtainable and how this best evidence obtainable works. Section 2 prescribe revenue procedures, no? So, pena dosis tecum. Pag hindi ka nagbigay ng mga books mo, meron ka ng letter of authority, padalhan ka ngayon ng first notice, and then after 5 days, second notice, hindi ka pa rin nagbigay, padalhan ka na ng final notice, no? After the final notice for the presentation of books of accounts, hindi ka pa rin nagbigay. So, padadalhan ka na ng sub pena dosis tecum. The docket of your case, papadalayan ng examiner sa legal division ng BIR, and then the legal division will issue sub pena dosis tecum commanding or requiring the taxpayer to submit its books and records to the examiner, no? So, all concerned, dito po sa sub pena dosis tecum, all concerned shall strictly implement the prescribed procedures and the Revenue Memorandum Order number 35-90 on the issuance and enforcement of the sub pena dosis tecum in order to compel the taxpayer to present his tax records for tax audit purposes, impose the corresponding suggested compromise penalty for the violations of the bookkeeping regulations as may be warranted, and/or, ito na yung and/or, institute criminal action, ito na yung contempt of court, no? For the taxpayer's violation of the subpena. Saan to pinafile? Sa korte na po, no? Criminal action for violation of summons. In case the taxpayers violates the subpena dosis tecum, the legal division or the prosecution division, as the case may be, shall institute criminal action against the taxpayer himself or the responsible officer in the case of a corporation. No? So, kung taxpayer individual, yung individual taxpayer mismo. But if the taxpayers is a corporation, then yung kanyang mga responsible officers. Sino yung responsible officers ng corporations? Mga board of directors, no? Chairman, president, treasurer. Okay. Assessment based on best evidence obtainable. So how does it work? An assessment based on best evidence obtainable is justified, no? When any of the grounds provided by law is clearly established. Bakit ginamit na itong best evidence obtainable? Kasi walang libro, no? Because, for your information, once na we file our income tax return, it should be supported by receipts. Just like, halimbawa, na bigay tayo ng income tax, bigyan mo ako ng sample ng financial statement, Hari. Hari, bigyan mo ako ng sample ng financial statement. Doon, sa mga gilid, no? Pakita ko sa kanila. Okay. So, I will show to you the sample ng sinasabi natin na mga financial statement. Ito ba pagka nag-submit tayo sa BIR, na ITR natin kasama yung mga financial statements. At ano-ano yung mga laman ng financial statements natin, kasama na yung auditor's report ng CPA pagka ang gross sales mo during the year is more than 3 million. No? So may nakalagay na dyan na CPA certificate. No? Kung sino yung certify, no? Ito na. So nakalagay po dyan, report of independent auditors. And then, ano pa yung mga naka-attach dito? The balance sheet, no? So these are very important. Okay. So this is your balance sheet. This is an example of the balance sheet. And this is attached to your income tax return. At what are the contents or information of the balance sheet? The balance sheet contains your assets, your liabilities and equity. Ito yung pag-aari ng kumpanya o ng individual at saka yung mga pagkakautang niya at saka yung kanyang equity o yung matira sa business niya kung ibawas mo yung utang doon sa kanyang assets, no? Na meron siya. So yun po yung equity. Yun yung matitira sa may-ari kung halimbawa may assets nga siya pero may mga utang naman siya, ibawas mo yun. So may matira ba sa kanya, no? So yun po yung equity niya. Yun yung pag-aari niya doon sa negosyo. So, bakit itong mga information dito? This is not taken as it is, no? Dapat, pag may mga nilagay ka ng mga information dito, that should be supported by a receipt, no? Just like halimbawa, may nilagay ka dito na property, plant, and equipment. And then during the year, meron kang additions, may nabili ka na property, plant, and equipment in the amount of 5 million, halimbawa. Dapat yung 5 million mo yan na property and equipment, that should be supported by a receipts. No? So yun yung hinihingi ng examiner at the time na i-subject ka na niya for audit. Titingnan niya ngayon na itong mga information na nilagay mo dito are duly supported by a receipts. No? So isa-isahin natin ha. Dito sa assets, umpisa tayo sa cash. No? So ano yung supporting document for cash? No? Passbook. Kasi halimbawa, meron kang 10 million, hindi naman po pwede yung 10 million. Hawak mo yan sa kamay mo, no? That is very, very risky considering na vulnerable po yung cash sa theft, no? So, at saka it will also bring some security issues, no? So, very dangerous. So, saan yan? Ang cash mo na yan. Nasa bangko yan, no? So, ano supporting documents mo during audit? Your passbook. And then we have the receivables and the mga prepaid expenses. Ano yung proof mo naman dito sa mga receivables? Sa mga accounts receivables mo. The accounts receivables, saan po yan siya nanggaling? Sa sales, no? Pinautang mo yung sales mo. So the moment na nagpautang ka ng sales, ano yung supporting documents mo? Resibo na naman. Yung resibo na in-issue mo because nag-sales ka, no? Nagbenta ka, no? So, saan yan galing? Yung receivables mo, galing yan sa sales. No? Kasi trade yan. And then, prepaid expenses. Prepaid expenses more so, anong kailangan na dokumento? Either official receipts or sales invoices. No? Kasi dalawa na lang, under Republic Act 9337 dated 2005, dalawa na lang yung ating resibo. Although, it was parang hinigpitan na lang noong 2013. No, 17-2013. Pero Republic Act 9337 pa po yan, 2005 pa yan na requirement. Yung official receipt at saka sales invoice. Okay. So for the prepaid expenses and other current assets, so anong dokumento natin dyan? Also, receipts, no? Official receipt or sales invoice. Saan mo yan makikita? Recorded yan sa cash receipt and cash disbursement mo. That's why you are required to keep your books of accounts. Kaya nga sabi natin, bookkeeping is the heart of tax compliance. Why? Because if you have no records of your expenses, your income tax return is just a mere scrap of paper. No? So, paano lang to gagamitin ng examiner? Best evidence obtainable. Mag-i-estimate lang siya based on your returns filed. Mamaya tingnan natin itong regulations, no, sa best evidence obtainable. Okay. And then sa balance sheet natin, we also have non-current assets. And under non-current assets, we have property, plant, and equipment. That's why very, very important po ang property, plant, and equipment. We are required to have a lapsing schedule for property, plant, and equipment, especially that we claim depreciation, no, sa property, plant, and equipment. So any additions and any disposal on property, plant, and equipment should also be meron ka ring ipipresent na mga resibo. So halimbawa, nag-additions ka, ano ipipresent mo na resibo? The sales invoice because you purchased a machinery. Pagdating naman sa disposal, ano ipapakita mo since ikaw yung nag-dispose? No? Dapat ikaw yung nag-issue ng resibo mo upon receipt of the payment. No? Since this is a registrable property, halimbawa, nagbenta ka ng sasakyan, that is a registrable property, so dapat meron kang deed of sale dyan. No? And then, nag-withhold pa yung buyer mo, niremit niya sa BIR. So, those are the requirements. Pag hindi mo yan pinakita, wala kang ipakita kasi yung iba drawing lang, naglagay lang sila doon ng mga additions, disposal, para makaklaim ng malaking depreciation expense, no? So, ano mangyayari? Best evidence obtainable na naman yung gagawin ng examiner. Okay. Intangible assets net. No? So, ano yung mga proof natin sa intangible assets? Yung mga registration natin sa IPO, yung mga research and development natin when we develop the intangibles. And then we have the investment in subsidiaries. So, how can you prove this investment in subsidiaries? Through contract of loan or through the purchase of shares of stocks. No? And then we have deferred tax assets. Ano to mga deferred tax assets na to? Ito yung mga input natin, mga advance payment natin ng taxes. No? And then pension assets, net. And then we have other non-current assets. No? So lahat yan dapat may supporting documents and then recorded sa ating books of accounts. And then we have the total assets. And then we have the liabilities and equity. So, under current liabilities, we have accounts payable and accrued expenses. No? So, anong proof ng accounts payable since pautang yan? Halimbawa, nangutang tayo. Anong proof niyan? Maybe charge invoice, no? Pag pinautang tayo, charge invoice. Kasi, kagaya dito sa example na to, yung utang niya na accounts payable niya is 8 billion. 168,464,984. So, pwede ba yan na may accounts payable ka na 8 billion, walang dokumento? No? So, you have to ask for a contract, no? Contract of loan or whatever. And then, we have the income tax payable. No? So, ano naman tong proof natin sa income tax payable? So, yung ating financial statement, yung ating income tax return. And then we have the lease restoration provision and the pension liabilities net. No? So, anong mga proof natin yan? So, kung pension yan, meron tayong company, no? Siguro mga insurance company or kaya yung mga mutual fund companies na doon tayo nagbabayad ng premium. No? At saka meron tayong policy, no? Kasi insurance. And then, we have the equity, the capital stocks. Saan nakikita yung record ng capital stocks? Sa book of the corporation, no? At saka saan yan mong gagaling? Sa articles of incorporation, nandoon yun para malaman mo. And then, we have the additional paid in capital. These are also recorded in the books of the corporation. And the capital contribution from ultimate parent. So, in this example, may ultimate parent siya kasi related party transaction. So, meron siyang ultimate parent. And then the ultimate parent is helping the subsidiary here in the Philippines, no? So, meron siyang capital contribution from ultimate parent. Anong proof natin for the capital contribution of the ultimate parent? Of course, the bank deposit, no? Or the amount that is remitted to the account of the subsidiary. Okay, so employee benefits reserve, no? Reserve yan. So, dapat naka-trust fund yan. And then the retained earnings, no? So, anong proof naman natin saan galing yung retained earnings? From our income statement, no? So, lahat po yan, nasa balance sheet yan, this should be supported by documents. Why? Kasi yun po yung hahanapin sa inyo once you are given the letter of authority. No? Mind you, yung mga account dito, may mga tax consequences po yan. Halimbawa na lang, example for account na mayroong tax consequences. No? Halimbawa, yung accounts payable mo or accounts receivable mo, sobrang laki na. And then, over na yung term. May mga over 90 days na, mayroong 120 days, no? So, if you have a receivable and the aging of your receivable is such that the period is already for a long time, dapat nag-earn siya ng interest, no? Kasi, there is already a cost of money holding those receivables. Kaya dapat may interest ka na. Otherwise, kung na-collecta mo yan, nagamit mo na sa capital mo, na-rolling mo na, kumita na ng kumita. So, why is it na pinapabayaan mo lang matulog doon sa nangutang, no? Accounts receivable mo, you will be questioned. And then we have the income statement, no? Ano naman yung nakikita natin sa income statement? We have the, in this case, service income. And then we have the cost and expenses, the direct cost. And then we have the gross profit. And then we less the operating expenses. No? So we have the income before income tax. And then income tax expense. And then net income after deducting the income tax. No? So, anong mga proof naman dito? Actually, for your information, sa karamihan ng mga examiners, pag namili sila ng case, dito kaagad nakatingin. Bakit? Kasi titingnan mo, malaki yung sales. And then, of course, titingnan mo na, baka per face of the return pa lang, dito pa lang sa income statement na isang page na to, baka may mga deficiency ka na nga nang makuha dito. Bakit? Nagkaroon ng deficiency. Halimbawa, sa total income pa lang niya, pag tinignan mo doon sa mga resibo issued niya at saka sa recorded sa books of accounts, maliit, no? Halimbawa, meron siyang service income dito na 57 million. Pagdating doon sa actual na records, 30 million lang, no? So, hindi sila magtatali. O kaya, 57 million lang yung kanyang nireport sa income statement, pero doon sa actual, 97 million pala, no? So, yun yung ina-ascertain ng examiner na dapat yung nire-report mo in your books of accounts, in your actual transaction should also be the same with what you are declaring in your income statement as your attachment to your income tax return. No? So, sa mga expenses, no, other income or operating expenses, there are accounts or just like taxes and licenses wherein you are not supposed to deduct the penalties sa taxes and licenses, only the basic tax, no? And then interest income, no? Sa interest income, bakit? Interest expense, no? Interest expense is subject to interest arbitrage. So if you have an interest income, just like in this case, meron siyang interest income na 236 million. Meron siyang interest expense na 10 million, no? So babawasan pa yan because magkakaroon siya ng interest arbitrage. Which I will show to you because sa create law, nagbago din po yung computation ng interest expense, no? And interest arbitrage. Okay. Others net, no? So dito po sa income statement, ano yung mga dokumento na kailangan ng examiners dito? Of course, kailangan niya yung sales book mo. Why? Kasi nandito yung service income mo eh. Anong requirements natin dito? Your total sales should be recorded in your books of accounts, and if you are about taxpayers, it should have been reported also to your summary list and of sales and purchases. No? So, tali lahat yan. Okay? So, for the cost and expenses, ano namang hahanapin yan? Your supporting documents, which are the receipts, na official receipts or the sales invoice. No? So, lahat yan. Halimbawa, you have the utilities. Ano yung kailangan sa'yo na ipakita mo? Resibo. No? Resibo ng Meralco, resibo ng MWSS. So, lahat yan, lahat po yan na dineclare mo dito should be supported by our receipts and then should have been recorded in your books of accounts. Why? Because pagdating na po ng tax audit, yan po ang hinahanap ng examiner. No? Okay. Meron kang financial statement, wala kang books, wala kang records, wala kang resibo. The best evidence obtainable will come in. No? Darating na siya. Bakit? Kasi wala kang papakita ng mga resibo. And very harsh po si best evidence obtainable. Bakit? Kasi i-disallow niya yung mga expenses na kiniklaim mo per your return na hindi naman supported by receipts, no? Okay. So, meron pa dito na statement of changes in equity. No? So, titingnan din po natin yan. Nandyan yung movement ng capital mo. Whatever income that you earn during the year, sasama yan doon. Doon ang bagsak niya sa equity mo. No? And then we also have the cash flow. No? So, itong cash flow, ito yung saan mo ginamit yung cash mo during the year. No? And when we say business, dapat pang-business lang to, hindi pwede kasama dito yung personal. Kung personal mo, then doon mo siya isama. Yung halimbawa, you are a registered consultant. No? So doon mo isama yung mga income mo at saka expenses at doon mo rin isama yung mga receipts mo. Kasi ang isang practitioner or consultant are required to maintain books of accounts, file the income tax return, and all the necessary documents should be in support of those na nasa balance sheet income statement nyo. No? So, the cash flow, makikita dito yung flow ng cash. No? Okay. Ito na rin yung operations mo during the year. No? Kasi hindi balance siya. Okay, and then after that, we have the cash flow, we have the statement of changes in equity, and then we have the income statement, and then the balance sheet. Now, let's go to the notes to financial statement. No? So, yung notes to financial statements, ito yung explanations about the balance sheet, about the income statement, about the accounts sa cash flow. Dito yung explanation, no? So, ini-explain dito na mabuti. Okay. So, it's not sufficient that you have your income tax return na nagawa mo, pero wala kang records na ipapakita during the audit, no? So, doon ka talaga mahirapan at doon ka mape-penalize. Okay. So, assessment based on best evidence obtainable. Kasi under investigation ka, hindi ka nagpakita ng libro. So, anong gagawin ngayon? Kailan po pwede si best evidence obtainable? The assessment based on best evidence obtainable is justified when any of the grounds provided by law is clearly established. No? Number one, the report on records requested from the taxpayer are not forthcoming. Walang libro, walang resibo na ipapakita. Oh? The records are lost. Kasi nawala daw yung records. Refusal of the taxpayer to submit such records. No? So there is a refusal. The reports submitted are false, incomplete, or erroneous. So pagka nandyan yung mga ganitong instances, papasok na si best evidence obtainable. No? In every case where a taxpayer is ordered to be examined, no, in order na examine na siya, under examination siya, under audit siya, and he refuses or fails to submit his records giving rise to the issuance of pena dosis tecum pursuant to Ramo number 35-90, the assessment shall only be issued after a criminal case has been instituted for failure to obey summons. No? So, anong sabi niya? Assessment shall only be issued after ng criminal case. Bakit? Criminal case po yung hindi ka mag-submit ng books of accounts. Kaya nga, dumadaan sa korte because it is the court who will declare you in contempt, no? So may multa na, may kulong pa po. So in every case where a taxpayer is ordered to be examined and he refuses or fails to submit his records, giving rise to the issuance of subpoena dosis tecum pursuant to Ramo number 35-90, the assessment shall only be issued after a criminal case has been instituted for failure to obey summons. No? So, anong mangyayari pag na-issuean ka na ng subpoena? Kailangan mag-present ka na ng books of accounts. Wala kang books of accounts. No? So, tuloy-tuloy na yung subpoena. From the legal division, dadalhin na po yung subpoena mo sa court, and then the court na, the fiscal will file na case against you. No? So, after filing of the complaint against the taxpayer for violation of the subpoena dosis tecum, the legal division or prosecution division shall immediately return the docket of the case to the concerned revenue officer. No? So the revenue officer shall, upon receipt of the docket, immediately proceed to determine the taxpayer's deficiency, internal revenue tax liability, in accordance with the best evidence obtainable. No? So, pagka yung docket ng case mo, ito, yung letter authority mo, hindi ka nagbigay ng documents, papadala to ng examiner sa legal, no? Sa legal division. Pagdating sa legal division, papadala na yung legal division sa iyo ng subpoena, no? Dadalhin na naman yan sa taxpayer, papareceive. Okay. Pero, kailangan mag-present na ng books and records. After the subpoena dosis tecum, hindi pa rin nagbigay ng records ang taxpayers. Ano na yung next? Itong docket ng case mo, dadalhin na to ng legal sa regular court, no? Pagdating sa regular court, hindi ka pa rin nagpakita ng books and records mo, kakasuhan ka na sa regular court ng contempt of court, no? Kasi bakit ka na contempt? Kasi hindi mo sinunod yung subpoena, hindi ka nagbigay ng mga records. So very important po that you present your records at the first time pa lang na nag-request na yung examiner, no? Okay. Pag na-file na ang case sa court, nilitis na yung taxpayer, the legal officer will return the docket of the case to the examiner, no? At ano na yung gagawin doon ng examiner pagka may subpoena na tapos hindi pa rin nagpapakita ng libro, doon na papasok si best evidence obtainable, no? Okay. Anyway, may guideline dito kung anong gagawin. So in every case where taxpayer is ordered to be examined and he refuses or fails to submit his records, giving rise to the issuance of subpoena dosis tecum pursuant to Ramo 35-90. The assessment shall only be issued after a criminal case has been instituted for failure to obey summons. Yun ang sabi ko sa inyo na ibabalik sa docket yung assessment, pero na kapag file na ng criminal case ang BAR, no, in this case, no? After filing of the complaint against the taxpayer for violation of subpoena dosis tecum, the legal division shall immediately return the docket of the case to the concerned revenue officer, no? So pagbalik sa kanya, the revenue officer shall, upon receipt of the docket, immediately proceed to determine the taxpayer's deficiency, internal revenue tax liability in accordance with the best evidence obtainable, no? So, yung best evidence obtainable, parang doctrine na to ng audit, no, ng BAR investigation. Existing revenue procedure and jurisprudence governing assessment based on the best evidence obtainable, no? So, may mga jurisprudence pa, no, governing assessment. Okay. Provided hereunder the existing revenue procedures and jurisprudence governing issuance of a deficiency tax assessment based on the best evidence obtainable. So letter A, assessment based on estimate when valid. Kailan daw valid ang assessment na based lang sa estimate, no? In the absence of proof of any irregularities in the performance of official duties, an assessment will not be disturbed. No? So, hindi na i-question yung assessment. Even an assessment based on estimate is prima facie valid and lawful where it does not appear to have been arrived at arbitrarily or capriciously. Okay. The burden of proof is upon the complaining party to show clearly that the assessment is erroneous, no? So failure to present proof or error, yung assessment na yan will become final, no? So mahaba-haba ito, ano ko na lang sa inyo, concise, no? I-summarize na lang. Assessment based on estimate, no? Pwede rin, no? May facts kasi dito at saka may precedent in the case of Ferdinand R. Marcos II versus the Court of Appeals, no? So panalo yung grupo ni Ferdinand Marcos II, no? Okay. So yung assessment based on estimate is valid, no? May mga precedent na case. Assessment based on estimate, 50% rule in the absence of receipts to prove actual amount of expense deduction. Ano po itong best evidence obtainable natin? Pagdating na, di ba sabi na nag-file na ng kaso, na subpena na, lahat-lahat na, ibalik yung docket ngayon sa examiner and then i-continue niya yung audit. Anong gagawin niya? I-disallow niya kahit 50% of your expenses, di-disallow niya. At ano yung reason? Unsupported, no? Okay. So imagine gaano kalaki yung babayaran mo. Okay. So the BIR ruling on the assessment based on estimate, no? Yan yung sinasabi dito na the best evidence rule. Ito, sa net worth method of investigation, no? Tapos na tayo doon sa best evidence obtainable. Ano naman tong net worth method of investigation? Determination of the taxpayer's taxable net income through the net worth method of investigation is valid, no? So ano naman tong net worth method of investigation? The taxpayer commits violation of the law, hiding his income. To evade payment of taxes, the government must be permitted to resort to all evidence or sources available to determine his said income so that the tax may be collected for public purposes. No? So yan po yung net worth method. Ano yung net worth method? Yung mga ari-arian mo, no? So bakit nag-increase ka ng net worth pero net loss ka naman ng net loss, no? So that will be under investigation or you will be subjected to a thorough audit. Assessment based on best evidence in case of non-presentation of taxpayers' books of accounts, no? So hindi ka na nag-present, so best evidence available na ang ginamit ng examiner to continue with the assessment of your case, no? Okay. BIR may resort to assessment based on best evidence obtainable if the taxpayer's accounting records is not understandable. Hindi mo maintindihan, no? Okay. So yun yung tinatawag na bookkeeping system. Okay, so papaano na pag ginamit na ng examiner ang best evidence obtainable, yung case, yung taxpayer na file na ng case in court, disallow po nila 50% of your claim deductions. No? So, magkano na lang natira? Magkano na kalaki yung income mo pagka ganun po yung nangyari. No? So, the best evidence obtainable is saan ba siya? Favor or against the taxpayer? Kaya nga, ang sabi na natin na bookkeeping is the heart of tax compliance. Kasi si best evidence obtainable, hindi yan papasok kung kompleto ka ng records mo. No? So, yung pinile mo na income tax return are all fully supported by receipts, naka-record sa books mo. Then, pag hiningi ng examiner, nandyan may bibigay ka kaagad. So, hindi na pwedeng i-apply yung best evidence obtainable. No? Okay. Now, let's go to reinvestigation at saka reconsideration. No? Kasi sabi na nga natin, after filing your income tax return, you will be subjected to audit. So, may mga audit guidelines naman din po na sinusunod ang BAR. No? Sabi na natin, bibigyan ka ng notice ng examiner, magbibigay ka ng mga records mo, and then after that, gagawa na siya ng findings. No? Paggawa niya ng findings, may deficiency ka, padala ka muna ngayon sa recent notice of discrepancy to explain kung papayag ka ba o hindi doon sa dinisallow ng examiner. At kung hindi ka naman papayag, meron ka bang documents to support the case. No? So, dalawa yung pwede mong gawin. Isa is request for reconsideration pagka may receive ka na ng mga assessment na ito kung ganito kalaki yung tax na hindi mo nabayaran. So, dalawa yung pwede mong request for reconsideration and request for reinvestigation. No? So, na-discuss ko rin to doon sa una, pero balikan ko lang. Request for reconsideration under ito pong Revenue Regulations number 18-2013. No? Ano sabi niya dito sa request for reconsideration? Refers to plea of re-evaluation of an assessment on the basis of existing records without need of additional evidence. It may involve both a question of fact or of law or both. No? So, pagka nag-request ka for reconsideration, ito na, binigyan ka ng notice of discrepancy. No? Tapos, preliminary assessment notice na. Anong gagawin mo? Pag nag-request ka for reconsideration, wala ka nang ipipresent na bagong mga documents. No? Halimbawa naman, ang pangalawang option ang ginamit mo, request for reinvestigation. No? So, alin ang mas matindi? Investigation o reconsideration? Mas matindi ang reinvestigation. Why? Because when you request for the investigation, you let the examiner re-evaluate the assessment previously made and then on the contention na magsasabit ka ng bagong evidences or mga records, no? So, alin ang mas mahirap, reinvestigation o yung reconsideration? Mas mahirap ang reinvestigation. Kaya nga, binigyan ko kayo ng tip doon sa una nating discussions on what happened after filing your income tax return. Ano ba yung sabi natin na during the audit, pag nag-protest ka, request for reconsideration or request for investigation. Anong pipiliin mo? Dapat request for reconsideration. Why? Because a request for investigation refers to a plea of re-evaluation of an assessment on the basis of newly discovered or additional evidence that a taxpayer intends to present in the reinvestigation. It may also involve a question of fact or of law. No? So, matindi sa reinvestigation. Bakit? Parang binigyan mo ulit ng leeway yung examiner para titingnan pa niya, i-reinvestigate pa niya, and then magdadala ka pa ng bagong mga documents, no? To present your side. So, ganyan po ang request for investigation. Halimbawa, meron ng previously na findings, no? Meron ka ng deficiency na findings. Nag-request ka pa for investigation. Then the examiner is not duty bound to remain on the original findings. Pwede pa niyang dagdagan. Pwede pa niyang i-abandon yung unang reinvestigation mo. Why? Because you presented the newly evidence, no, na hindi pa na present doon sa una. Kaya ang binigyan mo ng power yung examiner, uulitin na naman ulit yung investigation mo, no? Kaya nung ano ko dito, advice, request for reconsideration. Never request for investigation. Kasi pag nag-request ka ng investigation, napakatagal niyan at ang dami mo pang ipipresent ng mga books and records. Pero kung wala kang books and records, sa reconsideration ka na lang because sa reconsideration, no additional evidence is presented, no? Issue lang ang pag-usapan ninyo doon kung tama ba o hindi yung ginawa ng examiner. Pero as to the new evidence, hindi na po kailangan. No? So, reinvestigation versus reconsideration. Reconsideration, wala ka na additional documents to be presented. Reinvestigation, meron pang additional document presented at saka uulitin yung audit mo. No? So, mahirap yun. At saka along the way, pag nagpa-reinvestigate ka uli, mas marami pa makita ulit yung examiner na mga findings, no? So, huwag pahirapan ang sarili. Reconsideration ang i-request, huwag reinvestigation. Okay? Shout out uli, Hari. CCR lang ako, ha? Okay.
Shoutout daw mga klase.
Hindi ka pa nag-shout out?
Shoutout po kay Ma'am Emily Cañete. Watching from Canlaon daw siya, ma'am. Tapos kay Alan Russell Reyes. Good evening daw po. Pati kay Gionito Avenido. And kay Julia Alfonso. Shoutout din po kay Taxpayer. Pati po kay Ma'am Ami Oclarit. Then kay Joffred Tere Tumale. Good evening din daw po sabi ni Ma'am Leslie Ebalan. And from Rosalina Tune from Cebu. And kay YouTube Prem, good evening daw po. Pati po kay Miss J. Shoutout din po kay Ma'am Josie Tindo Bambaw. Shoutout din po kay Ma'am Hilda Rodriguez. Pati po kay Lisander Mabago. Good evening din po kay Ma'am Bel Marcelo. And kay Ma'am Fe Herrera, good evening daw po. Sila lang ang nadagdag.
Sige, question and answer tayo.
Sa question po, ma'am, galing kay Janet Alusiman. If may na-receive po kaming preliminary notice to submit third quarter summary list, sales and purchase, pwede
Okay.
pa po ba kaming mag-submit at amend ng 2550Q?
Pwede po. Kasi notice lang naman yun na summary list of sales and purchases, hindi po yan audit, no? Requirement lang po yan na mag-submit kayo. Pero that is not audit yet. Kaya pwede pa po kayo mag-amend. Ang hindi pwede mag-amend pag meron na kayong letter of authority for investigation.
Next po, galing kay Sir Gionito. Regarding po ito sa tanong ko last Tuesday sa 2550Q, na mali na file ko, 2550M na yung na-file, tapos nabayaran ko last quarter, 2020.
Okay.
Pag mag-file ako ngayon ng 2550Q, hindi na po ako magbabayad.
Hindi na, kasi yung payment doon sa payment mo ng ginawa nung December, pwede mo na siyang i-claim as payment. That's why yung 2550M mo na return, i-attach mo ngayon pag nag-file ka ng amended return.
Attach ko na lang yung 2550M na binayaran ko sa
Yes
December
po.
2020.
Yes po. Yes po, kasi bayad na yun eh. Itinama mo lang yung form.
At pwede pa ba ako maggawa ng SLSP sa fourth quarter?
Yes po,
2020?
talagang requirement po yan. Mandatory po yung SLSP. No? Mandatory po yan. Pag hindi nyo na submit yan, kakaroon kayo ng penalties. Pero ano na, late na rin, no? May penalty na dyan. Usually, ang penalty ng mga district dyan is 1,000, but depende rin yung iba, depende sa gross.
Next, ma'am, galing kay Julie Alfonso. Tanong po sa pag-file ng SLSP, summary na po ba ng January to March or monthly po ang pag-entry?
Ikaw, sagutin mo yan.
Monthly po yung pag-entry dyan. Di ba po, bago kayo mag-input ng sales and purchase nyo, pipili kayo ng month kung anong month yung ipa-file nyo. So, monthly po yung pag-input dun sa VAT relief. Hindi siya summarize.
Okay.
Tapos, sabi niya, ma'am, follow-up daw sa pag-file kung need pa ilagay sa CD para ipapareceive sa RDO. So, hindi na po, mag-ano na lang po kayo yung
E-submission.
e-submission, yung dot file dun sa na-generate nyo dun sa VAT relief. I-email nyo dun sa e-submission@bir.gov.ph po. Tapos may magsisend sila dun ng confirmation na may na-receive silang yun nga yung summary list of sales and purchases nyo, tapos dapat nalagay dun no error.
Okay. So, yun na po, hindi na kailangan yung CD.
Opo.
Okay.
Next po, ma'am, galing kay Joffred. Paano po i-declare ang salary ng mga employee sa BIR?
Okay, declare. Ang employer po ninyo ang nagde-declare because kanila po expenses yung salary, no? And may requirement po sila doon to pay yung kung may withholding tax kayo na dapat bayaran monthly, then babayaran nila yan and then magkaroon sila ng alpha list, no? Doon sa alpha list makikita kung sino yung mga employees na nandoon at saka yung mga list of employees and then yung kanilang income. Yun ang pinasubmit po nila sa BIR, no? Yung 1604C. Kasi hiniwalay na ngayon yung F, no? 1604C, 1604F. Dati 1604CF yan. Okay.
Apo, ma'am. Next po, ma'am, galing po kay Ma'am Chinchin.
Okay.
Pwede mag-recognize ng accrued expense at payable as of balance sheet date ng utang na professional fees using statement of account lang.
Statement of account. So, wala pang OR, no? Wala pang OR. Ang ano po natin kasi sa services, gross receipt po tayo eh. Pero kung ni-recognize mo na siya as accounts receivable, then po pwede rin. No? Depende na po yan sa accounting system na ginagamit ninyo. Okay.
Karugtong, ma'am, kung pwede rin ba ma-recognize pwede rin ba recognize na ang input VAT at withholding tax for that kahit unpaid?
Ang problema mo doon, wala kang resibo eh, no? May technicalities kasi ang VAT natin. Pag walang resibo, hindi mo siya pwedeng i-recognize, no? Kaya kailangan magpa-issue ka muna ng resibo bago mo siya i-recognize. Okay.
Mga deficiencies due to timing difference kasi usually nasa NOD ko po. Recognize na ako ng input pero ang OR date ng supplier after balance sheet date na.
Nagkakaproblema ka doon during the audit, no? Kasi karamihan sa mga letter notices, yun yung kanilang mga allegations dyan na timing difference, no? But meron po at time tinatawag na accounting standards, no? And yung accounting standards natin, kung if we follow, hindi siya pwede, no? Hindi siya pwede. Kasi yung mga timing difference na yan, mga lapsing schedule na yan, may proper treatment yan eh, no? So, lalo na, pagka ni-reconcile natin yan sa VAT regulations natin that VAT dapat meron talaga siyang resibo. Kasi papaano mo siya i-recognize kung walang receipt, no? At bawal na bawal sa VAT na hindi ka nagre-resibo. That is a violation already. Oh, so, bawal na bawal po.
Next po, galing kay YouTube Prem.
Okay.
Paano po mag-file ng 2019 audited financial statement? Ngayon lang kasi na-finalize pero nakapag-tentative filing kami last year.
Okay.
Through EAFS. Kaso, nung magpa-file na po ako ngayon sa EAFS, wala na pong taxable year option for 2019. Magmamanual na lang siya, ma'am.
Manual na, papareceive mo na siya sa BAR, no? So, since amended yan, tingnan mo kung kung may hindi siya amended kasi tentative eh, no? So, ang pinail mo ngayon is final, no? So, pareceive mo sa RDO since 2019 yan at yun na yung 2020. Pakiusap mo na lang kasi they will impose penalty, na may penalty na siya. Okay. Kasi ngayon, ang tentative at you file a final return hanggang May 15, no? And since yan ay 2019 pa, may penalty na po yan. Pa-compute nyo muna sa Officer of the Day po ng BAR. Kung saan po kayo registered. Okay.
Next po, galing kay Ma'am Chinchin.
Okay.
Kailan po mag-stop ang counting ng prescriptive period to assess? Yung FLD po ba or yung FDDA?
Prescriptive period nag-stop. Pag may letter authority ka na, kasi yung sabi mo, yung stop na yung period na ulitin mo nga yung sinasabi niya, yung question niya.
Kailan po mag-stop ang counting ng prescriptive period to assess? Yung FLD po ba or yung FDDA?
FDDA, ang FLD, Final Letter of Demand. Kasi yung FDDA, Final Decision on Disputed Assessment, parang protest na lang yun eh. Pero doon sa FLD, sa Final Letter of Demand, doon na. Kasi final na yun. And the BAR, meron na siyang right to collect. Kumbaga sa meron na siyang findings, no? Kasi ang right of the government to collect is only 3 years. After that, magpiprescribe na, wala na siyang right to collect. But kung meron na siyang assessment at final na yung assessment, hindi na yan magpiprescribe. Hanggat hindi mo yan binayaran, wala na yung years. Kasi ngayon nga, may kinukolekta pa yung BAR na 2,000 pa, no? So, 2,000, hindi 21 years na. No, kinukolekta pa rin. So, ibig sabihin, hindi na magpe-prescribe ang right ng government to collect pag final na yung assessment. No? Yung sinasabi mo ng FDDA, protest yun eh. No? And sometimes yung protest hindi naman granted, no? Okay. Sige.
Next, ma'am, galing kay Ma'am Bernadette Lonon.
Okay.
Ma'am, tanong lang sa LOA sa City Hall. During renewal sa year 2021, naghingi ang taxpayer ng discount during pandemic 2020. Sabi ng City Hall, dalhin lang ang FS sa 2020, saka na magbigay ng discount. Nung nagbigay na ng FS year 2020, ang ginawa ng City Hall, nagpa-receive sila ng LOA. Ang tanong, bakit LOA? Sila naman ang nagsabi magdala ng FS. Ang gusto lang ng taxpayer, hindi sila magbayad kasi close from March to July.
Tanggapin nyo, pagka may letter authority po kayo, huwag kayong matakot kasi pang justification din yan ng City Hall na actual report or factual report na mayroon silang basis para babaan nila yung inyong babayaran. Kasi wag po matakot sa letter authority kasi yung letter authority na yan, may gagawin na report yan yung City Hall wherein i-justify niya na ito lang talaga ang mababa. And since pandemic naman, lahat yan, alam ang nangyari sa pandemic. No? So, more or less, ang City Hall, may basis sila sa paggawa ng report to justify, to lower down your babayaran na permit, no? Sa mayor's permit. Kasi, sarado naman talaga. So, huwag kayong outright na matakot kasi ang letter of authority naman din na yan, kailangan din yan nung City Hall to justify na hindi kayo pabayaran ng mahal. No? Okay.
Next, ma'am, galing kay Ma'am Chin Chin.
Okay.
Yung protest to fund with copies of supporting invoice pero nakabigay naman sa examiner nung LOA pa lang. Pero sadyang nilagay lang talaga sa fund. Request for reconsideration po ba or reinvestigation?
Kung resibo ang hinihingi niya, reconsideration na lang po yan. Wag mong ilagay sa reinvestigation kasi simple documents na lang naman yung hinihingi niya. Kasi pag nilagay mo sa reinvestigation, lahat ng dokumento mo, ilagay mo lang sa reconsideration kasi specific lang siya doon sa resibo na hinihingi niya. No? Kasi pag nilagay mo sa reinvestigation, lalaki. No?
Next, ma'am, galing kay Joffred. Pag minimum wage lang po ang salary, paano po siya i-declare?
Actually, if you try to look at sa mga videos natin, meron tayong mga videos diyan na who are the persons not required to file income tax return, no? So, hindi nyo na siya i-declare. Bakit? Sino magdi-declare doon? Yung employer nyo na. Sino ba yung mga persons not required to file income tax return? Those who earn, yung earnings nila are below or equal doon sa exemption, no? Exemption natin ngayon, zero rate is 250,000. So if that is your income, then you need not file. If you are an employee, sino ang magre-report sa iyo sa BAR? Yung employer mo, no? So hindi na kailangan i-declare. Kasama ka na doon sa alpha list ng employer mo. Okay.
Sabi niya, ma'am, start-up lang po ako at on-call lang ang mga personal at minimum wage. Paano siya i-record at i-declare sa mga books?
Sa mga books of accounts, pag employee ka, hindi na po kailangan ng books of accounts. No? Pag employee ka, ha, hindi ka required na mag-keep ng books of accounts. Only those na may business. Okay.
Next, ma'am, galing kay Miss J. Clarify lang po sa pag-record po sa cash disbursement book.
Okay.
Alin po ang susundin na date? Yung sa statement of account or sa OR?
Statement of account or OR. OR po, no? Hindi yung statement of account. OR kasi yung OR natin yun na talaga yung payment, no? So OR po, official receipt. Okay.
Sabi po ni Sir Gionito, ma'am, kung pwede daw paulit yung kanina, hindi daw niya narinig yung ano. Yung tanong niya, ma'am, regarding dun sa Yung sa 2550Q na mali yung na-file niya.
Alam nyo yung tinitingnan ko dyan yung mga concern ng mga YouTubers natin, no? Ang iba, during the live streaming natin, ma'am, gusto namin marinig yung live streaming nyo. Pero during the live streaming daw, nagluloko yung internet nila, hindi sila tuloy-tuloy na nakikinig, no?
Umaga natin internet niya may
No, so,
hindi niya narinig.
sobra. Sige. Yung question mo about how to amend your 2550M na dapat Q siya, no? So, you amend it now, halimbawa, ngayon mo lang siya pwedeng i-amend, pwede pa rin because wala ka pang letter of authority, no? Ang tanong mo, kung may babayaran ka doon, wala kang babayaran. Why? Kasi, you already pay it noong December. Nagkamali ka lang ng form. So, what are you going to amend or yung i-correct? I-correct mo yung tamang form na file mo ngayon, which is the BR Form 2550Q, no, instead ng M. Kasi ang Q is quarterly, ang December is quarterly, no, yung November and October lang yung M, no? So, when you file or when you amend yung 2550M nyo, anong gagawin mo? Cumulative na yung gagawin mong total, kasama na yung sales ng October and November, no? And then pangatlo na yung December na total, isama mo na doon. Hindi na siya yung kagaya ng monthly na only for the month of December lang yung ilalagay mo. So for the quarterly, which is December, kasama na yung previous na 2 months. So all in all, 3 months po yung laman ng 2550Q nyo. Pagdating doon sa tax payable mo, i-credit mo yung previously paid amount mo doon sa 2550M, no? So pag amend mo, wala ka nang babayaran. Why? Kasi bayad ka na eh. Inayos mo lang or kinorek mo lang yung maling form, no? Okay. But as to the payment, pwede niyo pong i-claim yun. Okay.
Next, ma'am, galing kay YouTube Prem.
Okay.
Amended po yung ITR namin for 2019.
Okay.
Kung mag-manual filing po kami, required pa din po ba na i-CD yung mga BIR Form 2307? May additional CWTs din kami, kasi kami nung nag-amend kami. No payment naman po yung ITR namin. Ito yung kanina, ma'am, yung sa EAFS na ano.
Yung sa CD, no, yung isi-CD pa nila, hindi naman na-require po yung na i-CD. Kahit na nga yung dati na ni-require nila yung 1709 na i-CD, ngayon hindi na, naggawa sila ng bago. Hindi na po kailangan i-CD yung financial statement. Diyan sa EAFS, no, diyan mo siya ipadala, hindi na kailangan ng CD. But in your case, ano nga yung case niya na dapat i-manual niya?
O kasi ma'am, sa EAFS, wala nang option dun na
Yung 2019.
2020 na.
So, i-manual na lang niya. Okay. So, pag i-manual po ninyo, hindi na kailangan ng CD. Yung mismo 2307 na mga forms, yun ang i-attach nyo doon. Kasi you will be claiming the amount doon sa 2307. No? So, hard copy nyo na lang and then attach nyo sa return and then patatak nyo sa BIR. No? Di ko lang alam ngayon dahil nagkahigpitan na naman sa ECQ, no? Dahil dati, yung mga taga-BIR, ang ginagawa, depende sa district mo, ha? May mga boxes sila sa BIR offices, tapos ihulog mo lang doon yung papel and then balikan mo na lang. No? So, anong gagawin mo doon since amended siya? I-attach mo yung previously returned filed mo. Or yung since tentative siya, so attach mo yung provisionary mo na return, i-attach mo na ngayon doon sa final. Okay. So, lalo siyang kakapal. Okay.
Ito ma'am, sabi po ni Joffred, ako po ang business owner ng startup company ko at on-call lang ang mga tao ko at minimum wage lang salary ko sa kanila. Paano ko po sila i-record sa mga books ko?
Payroll po, hindi sila kailangan i-record sa books mo. Gawa ka ng payroll. Kaya nga sa computerized accounting system natin, may isang module talaga para sa payroll. And yung payroll na yan din yung titingnan ng Department of Labor and Employment kasi nag-imbestiga din po sila ng mga employer. Yan din po yung titingnan nila pagka nag-audit po sila sa inyo, no? So you make a payroll for the salary. Patayin mo nga yung aircon, masakit sa mata. Next.
Next na ma'am. Galing kay Miss J. Pwede po ba i-record sa cash disbursement book ang Meralco bill kung iba naman po ang account name? Hindi naman talaga yung trade name ng lessor.
Gawa ko po kayo ng affidavit o kaya yung parang contract with the real owner para ma-claim ninyo. No? Ano kayo. Yung specific contract talaga na kayo yung gumagamit dun sa kontador na yan. No? Next.
Next ma'am, galing kay W. How many days pa ang tax audit before ma-prescribe from date of receipt ng LOA? Kasi 3 months na wala pa rin notice of discrepancy.
Yan ang ano nyo ha. Do not think na pinabayaan ng examiner yung LOA nyo, wala na yon. Minsan gumagawa na sila ng assessment, no? Nandyan yan, ang letter authority hindi po yan mawawala. Why? Kasi accountable po dyan ang examiner. Once na meron siyang letter of authority at nag-prescribe yung letter of authority sa kanya, minsan ang ibang examiner, binabayaran na lang nila ng sarili nila para hindi sila ma-admin, no? Kasi what will happen naman if the examiner na pinabayaan niya yung kaso, nag-prescribe, kakasuhan po siya administratively for those cases that prescribe, no, sa inventory niya. Kakasuhan po. Ang dami na pong examiner hindi nakakapag-retire. No, umaalis lang sa BIR because of that. Ang dami po. No? So, wag kang maniwala na ang kaso mo makakalimutan na yun o hindi. Minsan, pag malapit ng expired yung 180 days, bigla meron ka ng assessment na matanggap. No? Kaya follow up. Pagka may letter authority po kayo, do not wait sa examiner. No? Kasi ngayon, yung mga examiner work at home, yung mga examiner na iba, nagkakasakit din. So, kayo na mismo ang mag-follow up. Do not just wait for them. No? Experience ko yan sa large taxpayer. May letter authority ang examiner, limbawa, refund for VAT. Tapos, mapabayaan, hindi nag-follow up, hindi na lahat. Prescribe yung case. Hindi na mapunta sa national office, hindi tanggapin kasi prescribe na yung case. So, sino ngayon yung sisihin? Yung examiner o yung taxpayer? Sometimes nagtuturuan. Sabi naman ng examiner, kasi ito si taxpayer hindi naman nagbibigay din ng requirements, no? Kasi napaka-tedious ng audit ng VAT, no? Especially yung mga refund sa VAT, napaka-tedious yan. And usually, yun yung mga cases na nakakarating sa Supreme Court. Especially if the amount involved is very huge or material, malaki. Kaya, nakakarating po siya sa court. Okay, next.
Next ma'am, galing kay Julie Alfonso.
Okay.
Tanong po sa purchase receipt. Sa purchase receipt daw ma'am na walang TIN ang resibo. Okay lang daw po ba na hindi na i-entry sa summary list of sales and purchase?
Ikaw, sagutin mo, pwede ba yon? Especially if material yung amount, hindi ho pwede. Ma-letter notice kayo. No? Ma-letter notice kayo.
Pag sales pwede. Gagawin lang po zero. Pero pag purchase, hindi po pwede. Kasi yung sa resibo yung titignan nila na pinagbilihan nila, dapat may TIN number talaga. Sa
purchases kayo, yun naman yung nag-purchase, no? Pero kaya nga see to it, na pag nanghingi kayo ng resibo kung kanino kayo nag-purchase, then, paayos nyo na sa kanila, no? Yung resibo. Kasi, gagamitin nyo pa yung resibo eh. No? So, pag hindi yan maayos, kayo yung magsasuffer. That's why you demand na from your supplier. Next.
Wala nang tanong dito sa live, ma'am.
Ay, thank you. Sige. Pahinga na tayo kasi ano na eh.
1 hour, 20 minutes.
Okay lang yan. Sige. I would like to say thank you po sa mga viewers natin at saka doon sa ating mga subscribers. Hindi ko talaga alam na 17,800 plus na pala. No? So, see you next week ulit. Kasi sa totoong buhay pa, marami pa kaming mga FS na gagawin at saka yung transfer pricing. No? Meron pa tayong 3. Nagpa-follow up na rin. Kaya yung ating effort nakatutok muna doon. But anyway, thank you very much and have a nice weekend.